What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of the WrestleManiac UK show. Myself, Mex, coming to you today with an AEW Dynamite review. Hope everyone is well. Hit the like button if you're watching here on YouTube and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And if you're listening on the podcast platforms, then of course you can find us, or you've probably already found us on Google, Apple, Spotify, all them places. But yeah, in case you didn't know, this is available on your podcast platforms as well. Hope everybody is all right, man. I'm recovering from a bit of a cold. You might hear it in my voice, but coming through with another podcast for you guys, talking all things AEW Dynamite, the big angle, Kenny Omega returning to Dynamite, and after that showing from the weekend in New Japan, or in Japan, should I say, the Wrestle Dynasty show, this was very much welcomed. I think after seeing such a top tier performance, seeing him come back to his home promotion of AEW, the house that he has really helped to build, and the house that probably needs some refurbishment, but now he's back, he can get to work with that. And we're going to start today as we're going to break down the reviews. I'm picking like the top 5 things that we kind of learnt from AEW Dynamite. So not everything may be mentioned per se, but of course, the main major story beats and matches we'll talk about, and we'll talk about, how they're going to develop, I guess, in the next coming weeks, months, etc., etc. So yeah, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let's get into it, man. Let's start with, like I say, that big angle of Kenny Omega returning in like the main event segment of AEW Dynamite last night. And I must say, in fact, before we just jump into this, excuse me, I must say that Dynamite felt really good last night. It felt like there was a real energy about it. I guess coming from the week that we had, where we had a Raw on Netflix debut, which was very commercial in its presentation and what we got on the night, I felt like it was good to cleanse the palate and have a really good wrestling show. And that's what Dynamite was for me. It was a really good wrestling show. And to be honest, in a week or so where both of these companies, WWE and AEW, have debuted on new platforms, AEW on HBO Max and WWE on Netflix, this wasn't the debut show. AEW's debut show was last week when Ricochet stabbed what's his face, Swerve Strickland, and I felt like that was a bit lackluster of a debut wrestling show. Whilst WWE Raw on Netflix, that debut show was a bit not really even wrestling, So this show that AEW had, this Dynamite show for this week, probably should have been their debut show with, the likes of Kenny Omega returning, and, you had the angle with MJF cutting the promo with Jeff Jarrett, which we'll talk about. And then you had Ospreay, opening the show with Buddy Matthews. This should have been the episode that they done last week to kind of really welcome everyone to HBO and stuff like that. But anyway, like I said, I thought overall this was a really, really strong AEW Dynamite. But like I say, let's get into that big angle. Kenny Omega returning in the main event segment of Dynamite. He came out, the crowd were loving it. He was greeting the crowd, he was shaking hands and all of that kind of stuff. And it just really felt like someone has arrived, the aura was there. And Kenny Omega made it to the ring, and he gave us just a promo on just, I guess, how life has been for him over the last, 2.5 years or so, and the difficulties he's had and encountered. And it was a very nice, heartfelt, real promo. And he said that he's come back from something he wasn't meant to come back to, that the doctor said you'll be lucky to even have like a regular way of life, let alone come back and wrestle. And obviously we saw what he was capable of in the Dome over the weekend. A fantastic match, stole the entire weekend, I would say. Him and Gabe Kidd, shouts to Gabe Kidd as well. And he came back to Dynamite and said, and now I need to be here. I need to do this until I can't anymore, and hinted that he wants to be here every week, which was music to my ears. I did say on the Wrestling Weekly show on Sunday, check that out, weekly wrestling show covering everything, that, the big stories that happened in wrestling over the week. I did say in that show on Sunday just gone that maybe they should treat Omega, as like a special attraction and keep that aura around him, especially since he's recovering. Like, it may be hard for him to wrestle every week. Doesn't need to wrestle every week. He can just still make appearances on the show weekly. But with him saying it, I got really excited that yes, this product AEW, to really restore the feeling, we need the like of a Kenny Omega, weekly here to do his bit, sort of thing. I feel like with the new school restore the feeling, as this is the catch line they love so much. Will Ospreay brings that. Will Ospreay 100% brings that. But the AEW original restore the feeling, it's Omega, it's the Bucks, you know, it's Hangman. Like, so we've been missing a massive part of that, whilst we're all here trying to restore the feeling with pieces of the puzzle that, need restoring themselves, some of them. So yeah, I think with the likes of Omega and Ospreay leading the charge, AEW will be in a much better place. And well, I mentioned Ospreay. I'll get through the rest of the segment. So as Omega's cutting this promo, Don Callis, weird kind of music hits. And you can see Kenny is thinking, he's looking, well, Don Callis has come out the tunnel, but Don Callis wouldn't come alone. He never does. His pack of hyenas will be somewhere waiting. You see Kenny kind of clock in his head, wait, Don Callis is coming out on his own. He's looked around the ring, he's looked, into the fans. No one's coming from any other kind of obscure places. And Kenny Omega gets this really sinister grin across his face. And he jumps out the ring and he goes to attack Don Callis and lays hands on Don Callis. And it was so good because Don Callis gets away with so much crap. So for him to be literally caught now, I've caught you red-handed, none of your boys are around, and I can at least get a few digs on you before these guys eventually came out. So what do they call themselves? Monster Machine, I think. Lance Archer and Brian Cage, they came out, made the save, beat up Kenny Omega a bit, threw him into the ring. And then Will Ospreay came out. Will Ospreay, that opened up the show, which we'll get to later on. He came out in this main event segment to make the save for Kenny Omega. When his music hit, and I was like, huh? Is that Ospreay making the save? And I'm thinking back to, that New Japan press conference when Ospreay just had so much venom for Omega. And they continued that story, and it was really good. And like I say, Ospreay made the save, came through with a steel chair, cleared house. Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and Don Callis get away. And then we get the whole, facing back to back, and they turn around, and Ospreay's there, and Omega's there, and they're looking at each other. And it seems like they're maybe conversing, saying some words to each other, and there is still some level of animosity there, you might want to say. They're still not, best mates, but I guess Ospreay, big baby face, he's doing what he needs to do to protect the next big baby face or whatever. So yeah, this is good. I forgot to mention Carl Fletcher came out as well. Carl Fletcher came out to help these guys. But yeah, when Ospreay came out, everyone kind of scattered. And that's how the show went off air. Kenny Omega did cut a promo after the show went off air, but that is how the show went off air. And of course, they've already given us at next week's, what do they call it? Maximum Carnage, AEW Dynamite. We're going to get Omega versus Brian Cage, which is going to be fun. That's going to be a really fun match. Looking forward to that. We're going to get Omega versus Fletcher, which just chef's kiss. Like, that just sounds like it's going to be great. Fletcher's been putting in some amazing performances recently, with Omega looking like he can, really work right now. I'd like to see him work to that level over in AEW, because I think that's maybe one of the criticisms that have come from Omega in the last, or come from the fans, should I say, about Omega in the last 5 years. We haven't seen Tokyo Dome Omega in AEW. the same that fans say about Okada. We haven't really seen him of that level in AEW. So hopefully him and Fletcher can have an absolute barn burner. And maybe we're gonna get some tag stuff as well with Osprey and Omega teaming up against Fletcher and I don't know, Brian Cage or somebody like that, or maybe Fletcher and Takeshita versus Osprey and Omega. Like, it's going to be sensational. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Like, and the Don Callis family have really done a whole like 360 on where they were and how, as fans, we wanted the Don Callis family done, gone, come off my screen. You lot are rubbish. It's boring. Release this guy because he's great. Release that guy because he's great. But as a unit, you lot aren't making sense. And to be honest, to a degree, I still don't think the likes of Brian Cage and Lance Archer really have a place. They're just glorified henchmen, really. But the stories they're involved in just make a lot more sense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And with everything said, with those, 4 names I just mentioned in like a tag situation, we need to get to Osprey versus Omega. Those are the 2 big matches Omega is to have this year. Omega and Okada, we know, is probably a collision course for All In, big stadium show, middle of the year, July. And we need to get Omega versus Osprey this year on AEW soil. And like, I think Osprey should win the title this year. And I'm talking about the AEW World title. And maybe at the end, maybe World's End, maybe Full Gear, we get Osprey versus Omega. By the time all of these stories have been played out with the Don Callis family and all of that kind of stuff, it's like we just need to get to these matches. We can't hold them in the vault and just never do them and stuff like that, because then they may never happen. You never know what's going to happen to somebody, or if injury will stop your plans happening. We need to get to these matches. Omega versus Osprey, it's quite possibly the biggest match they could do right now. I mean, Omega versus Okada will be pretty big as well, but in terms of creating that new star, pushing forward that new star, who has to be Osprey, you know what I mean when I say new star. I know he's not new, but like this should be your Cody Rhodes. This is your poster boy. So Osprey he's gonna take the torch, carry the flame when the likes of Omega and Okada are really kind of, beginning to call it quits. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this whole promo. I thought it was a really kind of hot segment for a main event segment, and like I said, we've got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good matchups within it to look forward to. So yeah, good stuff from AEW, good stuff. It may not be, I still think, even I just said Osprey should win the title. There's parts of the crowd that are saying just fling the title back on Omega. Like, literally let him go and beat Moxley, ditch the Darby Allin stuff, and Omega should be the AEW World Champion. And I'm with it. I can't lie, I'm with it as well. There may be a period of us kind of finding out how much he can do, back to back to back. Is he having any, from all the wrestling, is there any kind of repercussions on his health and his situation? Hopefully not. So yeah, we might have a period of like testing the waters, so to speak. But yeah, I really do think that we have to make this next Omega reign, or run, should I say, count. This next Kenny Omega run in AEW really does need to count, because even if you think about it, when he was world champion, well, in a pandemic, I always argue he done his best work as we were coming out of the pandemic and he was still champion, and we got into the kind of finale, the final chapter of the Hangman stuff. I think Kenny Omega was on fire those times. And then since then, which was 2021, he's done some trio stuff. He hasn't been there. It hasn't really, he doesn't really done much of anything for the best part of 3 years or something. Of course, because of injury as well. But when he was there, the booking wasn't really, saying much and exciting us. And, using a talent like Kenny Omega to his full potential. So yeah, I think it's super important. We just check he's all right, give him some matches, check he's all right. And then we have to go full throttle. Kenny Omega, the best bout machine, the cleaner, god of pro wrestling, like let him have it, sort of thing. I would love that to include the AEW World Championship. I don't know if it will, but I agree with everyone that said it. I'm not the one that said it, but I agree with everyone that said it, that you should probably consider putting the AEW World Championship on him. He's that good. So yeah, great main event segment to punctuate what was a really good show in my opinion. But let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning, the opening contest on the show. Will Ospreay going up against Buddy Murphy. Now, these two had a really fun opening match. When this match was announced on socials, maybe like 24, 48 hours before, like everyone was like, brilliant. Like, this is great. Like, the top talents that they are, and this should be a load of fun and stuff like that. Lived up to that. It was a really good showing. They even kind of managed to embed the story of Will Ospreay beating Brody King. So like Buddy Murphy wanted to get some revenge on him, which I thought was a good, it was a bit of a fake way to motivate the match, but it motivated the match somewhat. So yeah, it made sense. I like that bit of story. Yeah, some really good stuff. The sequence of Buddy Murphy hitting like the GTS the other way around from how it's usually hit, like hit it to the back of Will Ospreay's head and then nailing Ospreay with a stomp afterwards. Buddy Murphy deserves more. And well, we'll get there. Yeah, great sequence. Unfortunately, Buddy Murphy didn't come out as the winner. Will Ospreay did win the match. And straight after Will won the match, he took to the mic. And Will said, well, firstly, he called him Buddy Murphy. I think I might have just called him Buddy Murphy 5 minutes ago. But yeah, he called him Buddy Murphy and then quickly corrected himself and said Buddy Matthews and apologized and said that, I've been watching you from afar. I've been watching you, and I think he said he's been hanging out with one of his best friends or something like that. And he said you've got a lot of potential, and that you don't need leadership. I was like, okay. We'll continue. You don't need the leader. You don't need leadership. You can do this on your own. You can go and get tag gold with Brody, or you can go and get singles gold, but you have to work hard for it and all of this kind of stuff. But you are a top talent, this, that, and the other. Said some really nice stuff, encouraging words, and putting him over even in his defeat and great performance. They shook hands. Will Ospreay left the ring. Buddy was left to kind of take in some adulation from the crowd and stuff like that. And even at this point, I was thinking, all right, this must be them trying to signal not necessarily like a hard split within the House of Black, like, Will Ospreay told me I'm good enough to go on my own sort of thing, so I don't need you guys anymore. But they are going to do something with Buddy Murphy. It seemed like that's the angle that they were going. And lo and behold, I think later on in the day, or today, news came out that Malachi Black has finished with AEW, and this is from Fightful, so it's not no like ibby dibby source sort of thing. We tend to trust what Fightful says out here. Sean Rossap does a good job, and they said that Malachi Black is as good as done, and we may have already seen his final appearance for AEW, which is, like I said, it's Fightful, so I trust it. But to a degree, it's like, well, we've heard Malachi Black is done with AEW like every 3 months for the past 2 years, sort of thing. So it's like, is this really it? But then the way Will Ospreay behaved following their match, it was pretty much that, okay, this is now a new slate. You don't need to be part of any family, have a leader, etc., etc. You're out in this big bad world on your own, and I'm backing you to, get stuff done. So that paired with the news report of Malachi Black being done with AEW, it makes sense. It makes sense. And listen, Malachi Black in AEW, just to kind of think about this run that he's had, underwhelming. That is, I mean, you could say that about a lot of WWE talents that have ended up at AEW, especially around that time of 2021 or so when they all went over there following being released from the WWE. But Malachi Black, so much promise, um, and just not given much of anything. We have to say that because obviously the bookers determine the regularity of somebody on TV. So not really given enough on TV to kind of sink his teeth into, and just not enough TV time in general, I would say. And then when given opportunity, just not really nailed it. You know, when you are given an opportunity, sometimes you can just go out there and take that opportunity with two hands, like so well that they can't deny you, and they're gonna think, I have to use that guy again. You know, Eddie Kingston came to AEW on an open challenge, did exactly that, took an opportunity, and now he's one of the most beloved members of the AEW roster. Ricky Starks done the exact same thing. I know right now things haven't, they don't look good for him, but he done that same thing, took the opportunity with both hands. And Malachi Black, although again, like I say, the regularity of him on TV, maybe the House of Black hasn't worked how he envisioned it and stuff like that, but they just have probably let him down, and he's probably let himself down. Like I say, it can't all be on AEW. Did you grasp the opportunity with both hands? I would have to say no. I would even have to say the likes of Brody King has probably been, and even Julia Hart. Brody King and Julia Hart have been the bigger breakout stars from House of Black than Buddy Murphy and Malachi Black. I don't think that could even be denied. Like, if we split these guys up now, I'm sure people are more interested in a Brody King singles run. And, Julia Hart, we can clearly see with how they brought her back to TV recently, they're invested in this girl, in this lady, and where they've got her to at this point, and the presentation of her and stuff like that. She beat the former AEW Women's Champion on her return from injury. I don't even believe that should have happened, but it happened. So, yeah, I think Malachi Black just hasn't taken opportunities as they've come. It's worked out to be a very underwhelming run. There's been too many reports since he's been there about how disgruntled he is, or like whether it's true or false. And he's been quite, loud in the press and stuff like that about, people are talking about my contract. That's not the case. So I'm still here, or they're just not using me. Not like that, but I'm fit. I'm not injured. So I can't answer any questions as to why I'm not being booked. He's been very vocal in the press over his 4 or 5 years in AEW. The press, the dirt sheets, they've been very vocal in terms of he's not having a good time. Once his contract's up, he'll be back to WWE. So it seems like we are potentially at that point. Like I say, the reports are saying that he may have wrestled his last match for AEW. And even remember, was that his last match, the one against Adam Cole, where he looked like he was saying goodbye to everybody? And Adam Cole was even kind of showing him respect in the ring. I'm pretty sure that was his last AEW TV match appearance, etc. And then you came out afterwards and saying, I'm not retiring, or I'm not leaving. And now we're hearing you're leaving and you haven't been on TV since then. Malachi, I don't know, bro. Yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. But you can only assume that he is back at WWE if he is going to leave AEW. He's been announced for a indie show, CCW. I think, is it Coastal Championship Wrestling? I think it is. CCW. He's got a match on the indies, so that's interesting. It's not AEW. You have to imagine he's resurfacing at WWE, maybe even as early as the Royal Rumble in 3 weeks. 1st of February, Malachi Black's music hits. He walks out. Aleister Black again. It's not far-fetched. it's not far fetched. But yeah, it looks like Buddy Murphy is, or sorry, doing Osprey. Buddy Matthews is being given the key to the kingdom. Go forward, be a singles wrestler, maximize your potential. I think he signed a new deal in AEW last year, so he's going to be in AEW at least for another 3 years, 3 to 5 years, you would think. Um, he's going to go forth. They've kind of christened him that as of that little display of um, respect that Osprey did after the match. And Malachi Black, like I say, you have to say it's underwhelming performance and stuff. But I'd love to hear what you guys think about Malachi Black in AEW. Should have been a lot better, but like I say, they never booked him probably to his full potential, and then opportunities he did get, I don't quite think he grasped. So yeah, that's that with the House of Black looking like the house is kind of falling apart, but we shall see. But moving on, another big thing that we learned from this particular show. I don't know how AEW feel, should I say, about Private Party. I just don't know if AEW have any stocks in Private Party as tag team champions. Now, they had a segment where they came out, they had a party or a VIP lounge in between the two tunnels. And they were telling us about how good they've been recently as tag team champions, and that they won the first ever tag team match on Collision or something like that, Collision on HBO Max. And I'm just thinking, who cares? Like, what? You won a tag team match on HBO Max? Like, it was like a real kind of struggle promo in that sense of trying to make nothing feel like something. And I like Private Party, but this run feels like it's like 5 years too late. It really does. So anyway, they're there and getting, putting themselves over and trying to make their tag team match and Collision feel like, I don't know, WrestleMania main event or something. And you saw the Hurt Syndicate's music hit, and I love that song. I'm sorry, I just love that song. I think it's brilliant. And the Hurt Syndicate walk out, playing into Bobby Lashley's entrance as well, because he's about to face Mark Briscoe. Her Syndicate come out, they go into this VIP lounge and they're telling, Private Party, MVP saying, let us in. I invented this lounge thing in wrestling sort of thing. And they're all about to kind of have a toast and stuff like that, sharing round the shots. And MVP and Bobby Lashley collectively say, we are toasting to taking those tag team titles off you. And obviously the entire mood changes. They just throw all the shots away, like pour them away into the champagne buckets and stuff. We had Bobby Lashley go on to do his match with Mark Briscoe, which was a fun match. Bobby Lashley dominated the match for large spells. We saw the little kind of flurry from Mark Briscoe where he got off the froggy bow. He even used the chair like under the ring. He used the chair on Bobby Lashley, and MVP was going crazy on commentary saying he's cheated. But yeah, it was just a little flurry getting his stuff in, and eventually he quit when he got the hurt lock put on him. Private Party came out to make the save from Mark Briscoe after the match. They came out with chairs. Hurt Syndicate left the ring. But we are clearly going towards Hurt Syndicate facing Private Party for these tag team championships. And I would assume Hurt Syndicate beating Private Party for these tag team championships. It was a real bomber, like for me to hear, I think came out in the dirt sheets that Private Party weren't supposed to beat the Young Bucks. When they did, they weren't supposed to beat the Young Bucks. And I'm thinking, but you were telling that story the entire time that they were going to kind of overcome, and they even put their tag team status as a tag team on the line. And then that came out that they weren't supposed to win. And I probably threw up in my mouth a bit when I heard that it was actually meant to be the Outrunners that beat them. And look, there was a period of time when I hated tuning into Collision and seeing the Outrunners. I didn't understand the gimmick. I don't think it's entertaining. If this was on WWE, people would be pulling their hair out that like what is this sort of thing? But it runs when it's AEW and no one complains. Oh, people say it's funny. Okay. Um, but I grew to at least respect them because they were doing the work and having decent matches and getting over. So if you wanted to put them in some type of tag team opportunity, at that point it was deserved. Like I said, initially I didn't like the Outrunners, but I grew to respect them. I'm not gonna say like I like them. They're a cup of tea. They're probably they're not. They're not. But for the Outrunners to be the ones to beat the Young Bucks, I don't know, man. To hear that when the likes of a private party haven't seen gold in this company this entire time. You've got what are those brothers called? Top Flight. Again, you like you've got tag teams before the Outrunners that could be tag team champions. And granted, you would have to build up all of these teams. It's not just give it to Top Flight because they haven't had it, or give it to Private Party because they haven't had it. But the Outrunners beating the Young Bucks, what's even the story there? When you have the story of when Private Party beat the Young Bucks, what, first episode of Dynamite, second episode of Dynamite? So, that, which is eventually what they leaned on. But you can clearly see, like, now you read the report, you can clearly see that it makes sense because Private Party have done niche since they won these titles. The following week or two after they won the titles is when they started that four way at whatever the pay-per-view was, Full Gear, I think it was, fatal four-way tag team championship match. It's just some nonsense, and they haven't done anything since. And they're here claiming, oh, we had a tag team match on Collision on HBO Max, and like that's brilliant, sort of thing. You never wanted them to be tag team champions, and yeah, I agree, and we can all see it now because you're not booking them adequately. You're not booking them adequately, and this should have been used as a resurgence for the tag team title picture, this division, that you claimed in 2019 that this entire company was going to be built off the back of, and we ain't seen it. And now you've put one of your homegrown grassroots teams with the championships, and you don't believe in them. You're ready to off it straight to the syndicate. And yes, I'm here for Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin winning gold, doing tag matches, beating people up every week. I'm here for that. But it's all about positioning and, perspective and stuff like that. And they've just literally felt like even within the tag team, right? Isaiah Cassidy is clearly the front man. He's cutting the promos and stuff like that. Mark Quinn is just holding a belt. Like, he is so insignificant in the tag team. And I really like him as a wrestler. But like, are we not planning to build this guy up? Do you want him to be Janae? Like, because that's how we're treating him. That's how we're booking him on TV. It's really weird. It's really weird. Like, so yeah, it looks like Hurt Syndicate are set to be tag team champions fairly soon. And like I said, it'll be deserved. It'll be entertaining. It'll be good stuff. But pour one out for Private Party, man. Like, literally, maybe they should split up anyway and let Isaiah Cassidy flourish if they have plans for Isaiah to be the man on himself. Because yeah, if we had waited 5 years for this tag run and this amounted to absolute niche, nothing, shishi, zero. Like, it's poor. It's a shame. It's a big shame. We'll move on to, I think, one of the low key highlights of this show, the Casino Gauntlet. this was a really entertaining match, and these casino gauntlets are usually they usually are okay, but I feel like this because of the names involved in this one, it almost felt big time. So the casino gauntlet match is a gauntlet match where but someone can get pinned at any time and the match is over. It was to become number one contender for the AEW World Title, and the winner got their match against John Moxley next week at AEW Dynamite Maximum Carnage. So fairly quick turnover from winning this, becoming number one contender, and then having your opportunity at the title. Um, Jay White entered first, Hangman entered second. We were already off to a winner because these two have been beefing and been involved with, their story with Moxley for the past couple of months now. So, yeah, you already knew they were onto a winner. I found it fairly interesting when Wheeler Utah came in next because it's like, oh, does Wheeler Utah, did you interpret it as did Wheeler Utah want an opportunity at Moxley, or was Wheeler Utah in there to stop people getting to Moxley? So yeah, and Wheeler Utah, he's such a loser. He's such a jobber. Like he's literally just such a jobber. I don't know if him being involved in Blackpool Combat Club or him being involved with the Death Riders, I don't know if that has raised his stock at all. Like he's a good wrestler. He's a very good wrestler. And no one can deny that. But in terms of perception and how we perceive Wheeler Utah, I don't know. He's just such a victim. He's just such a victim on AEW Dynamite. It's funny at times. But he entered number 3. Number 4 was perfect and my MVP, Ricochet. And Ricochet it was Hangman in the middle of the ring. The buzzer went down to 0. Whose house? Swerve's house. So it's Hangman, and everyone perceived Swerve was going to come out. And obviously, we know their history. And it was like, what did it say? It's not Swerve's house, it's my house. Ha ha! Ricochet's little laugh, Ricochet's music hit. Yeah, that was nice. That was really, really good. Big up Ben in the chat. He said Utah is a geek, Mex. So let's be real. He is a geek. I'm trying to find the word for him. He's, like I said, he's a jobber, he's a loser, he's a geek. He is. He really is. But he is a very good wrestler. But yeah, just in terms of his perception, I guess he's perceived as a geek. That's what he is. But yeah, Casino Gauntlet match. Ricochet. I actually thought Ricochet was like the MVP of this match. Just from moves he was pulling off, spots he was involved in and stuff like that. Ricochet was very good, and I'm enjoying Ricochet's work. I've said that. Yeah, Gloddy, big up Gloddy. He says Ricochet's fake out was world class. It was really good. It was really, really good. Plays into Hangman still kind of being tentative or scared almost at Swerve's presence, which is good. Keep Swerve's name alive. Obviously, we're still selling the fact that Swerve is off injured from being stabbed in his head last week or whatever. And then Ricochet gets the heat as well. It was really masterfully done by AEW. That was really good. We had Adam Cole come in at number 5, and I must say, this is the most Adam Cole has ever looked for a while. Just in terms of what he was doing in the ring, his general, he had a pep in his step almost. Didn't win the match, but he looked like himself somewhat, which was good to see. The TNT champion, Daniel Garcia, came out at number 6. We saw Powerhouse Hobbs come out at number 7. Number 8 was Roderick Strong. Number 9 was Lance Archer. Number 10 was Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly came out and he still had conglomeration Titron, despite saying that last week he's joined the Undisputed Kingdom. So that was something. And number 11, Jeff Jarrett. I was just about to say I don't want to talk about Jeff Jarrett, but there's a whole segment of Jeff Jarrett that we'll have to talk about following this. So okay. Jeff Jarrett came out number 11, but Wheeler Yuta was on him. Wheeler Yuta caught him in the aisleway, beat him all the way back into the tunnel. And that was Jeff Jarrett's involvement in that match. Next to nothing. Zero. Gone. Match continued. Powerhouse Hobbs caught Kyle O'Reilly with a spine buster and pinned him. Big win for Powerhouse Hobbs. Powerhouse Hobbs goes on to Maximum Carnage next week to face Jon Moxley. Big win. But we know he's not going to win. We know he's not going to win. So, he wins this match. He won last week against two jobbers to get into this match. The pay-per-view, World's End, he lost to Takeshita for the international title. He will lose to Jon Moxley for the AEW World title. I know this isn't really the definition of 50-50 booking, but it just seems very... like, I don't know what to call it. Like, we're giving right now Powerhouse Hobbs an international title shot. He doesn't win. Cool. He gets into a number one contender for the world title. He's not going to win. And where does he go from there? Into the syndicate, maybe? Join up with MVP and those boys? I don't know, because I respect the fact they're doing stuff with him. Do I dare say, is it too late? Who do we care? As fans, are we invested in what they do with Powerhouse Hobbs at this point? Is he just always gonna be a bridesmaid and not the bride? They gave him the TNT title once upon a time. Didn't really amount to much. Got caught in a web of him and Wardlow and some other nonsense. So it's a nice spot for Powerhouse Hobbs. You can only imagine there'll be some Death Riders chicanery to help overcome Powerhouse Hobbs and possibly look to keep him strong. But yeah, it's just now he's had the international title match and a world title match in the space of about 3 weeks. And not what's next? What's next? Do we still believe in him? Is there still stuff there for him to do? And yeah, him and Moxley had an interaction later on the night where I think he came out to make the save and kind of scared off Moxley and his people against Edge and FTR in that segment. Cope and FTR. But yeah, I don't know. Ben says here in the chat, it's about the presentation. Hobbs needs a sustained push similar to what Swerve received. Bang on. That's exactly what he needs. Will he get it is the question. And again, I'm not here lobbying for Hobbs to be world champion. I don't think so. We've really spoken about world championship caliber candidates that are waiting in the wing right now in Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. Hobbs doesn't need the world championship now, but these other multitude of titles that you have, international, TNT, like you can't. And this is why, as a fan, in the early AEW days, 2019, 2020, early pandemic times, I quickly lost faith in Brian Cage. You can't keep selling me this guy's a machine and he doesn't win big matches and he doesn't win. Like, he doesn't win. Brian Cage is about to go and have a match next week with a guy that's just returning from a crazy injury. Look at the size of Brian Cage. He should beat him. That's what you'd think, looking at the two people. But he's going to lose to Kenny Omega, which is fine because Kenny Omega, we know who Kenny Omega is in this thing. But like, Brian Cage kept losing to people in the early pandemic days, those Jacksonville days, Daily Place days. He kept losing to people he shouldn't have been losing to, just on an aesthetic one. And it ruined his perception. And then he started walking around with an FTW belt. And yeah. And this is the only reason this hasn't probably happened to Powerhouse Hobbs yet is because he's had injuries that have taken him off TV, that probably helped to kind of rehab all these losses he's taken and break up, you know, the frequency of us seeing him. Otherwise, Hobbs would be as probably mentally dead to us as a Brian Cage. Yeah, he could put on a good match, like Brian Cage can put on great matches, but it's like, do we really believe he can do anything beyond that? So yeah, a sustained push at a good level, with maybe picking up one of those mid card belts and then going on and having a good run with those with that title would be good. Would definitely be good. Like I said, he had a little interaction with Moxley. We'll see how that match goes next week. Um, and then yeah, I think we got to crack on to Moxley versus Darby, if that's what we're gonna do, or Moxley versus Cope. And then, like I said, I'm trying to see Osprey, Omega with that title. So let's get a move on, lads. Let's get a move on with this as well. And I guess this will be one of the final segments we'll probably talk about today. Um, I'll just throw in here now the women's stuff. We saw a match between Statlander, Willow Nightingale, and Tony Storm. This was for the number one position in their Casino Gauntlet match, which is happening next week at Maximum Carnage. We didn't really get much here story-wise between Statlander and Willow and them trying to rekindle their relationship or anything like that. I did think Tony Storm would win here, but she didn't. She was actually pinned by Statlander. So Statlander won the match. Statlander will enter the Casino Gauntlet number one, which is like the best positions because she can end the match quickly, but you basically have to end the match when there's like no more than two other people in the match. Otherwise, it's a bit pointless. But yeah, Statlander will enter number one, and I thought, oh, because the winner gets their shot at the AEW Grand Slam Australia show. And I thought, oh, I thought Tony Storm was going to win this. But to be honest, Tony Storm can still enter the Casino Gauntlet match. She's just not going to enter number one. So she can still enter the Casino Gauntlet and still win it, which I think is probably what's going to happen. So yeah, that was as far as women were involved on this show. We saw the women's champion backstage with Harley Cameron, who is just so entertaining. But yeah, the women's champion Mariah May, not really. It's the same old promos, and it's like a bit boring. Harley made it a bit more interesting. These two it's the kind of like straight out of the Attitude Era sort of thing, like just in terms of their presentation and being very glamorous and sexy and sexualizing things and stuff like that. Harley was lobbying to have a Hot Girls Graps match on Collision. No title involved against Mariah May, but they're going to do that on Saturday. So yeah, I'm sure that will get the crowd going. But yeah, it's from the women's champion, it's like we just need to get to the Tony Storm stuff now because we've avoided it for as long as we can, and it's kind of holding up and ruining the greatness that Tony done with that title and getting the title on Mariah May. So yeah, maybe next week we'll talk more about the women's stuff once we have it confirmed as to who the number one contender is and, what the title match is going to be for the women at that Grand Slam show in Australia. Pretty sure it'll be Tony versus Mariah May. We'll see next week. But yeah, I guess the last segment I wanted to really touch on today was MJF versus Jeff Jarrett. Or MJF and Jeff Jarrett, sorry. So we saw Jeff Jarrett after Powerhouse Hobbs won the gauntlet match, coming back out finally after being beaten to the back by Utah. He came back out and he congratulated Powerhouse Hobbs, and he was going the ring to kind of make a promo. He started saying in this promo that, this was an opportunity to kind of get to the world title, and I couldn't do it, couldn't get to the ring, and, playing the violin, guys, I don't know if I can do this anymore, etc., etc. MJF's music hits. MJF comes out. MJF gave him all these pleasantries that he said I Googled to get because I wasn't alive yet. You're my dad's favorite wrestler. So typical MJF kind of stuff. And basically MJF is saying that, you can't do this on yourself, get to the world title and win the world title on yourself. I will help you win the world title, but when I help you win the world title and you win the world title, I get the first shot at you. So MJF, the devil, ultimately this would have been Jeff Jarrett doing a deal with the devil and trying to, you know, MJF trying to get in here some way, get an opportunity some way, somehow at Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff Jarrett rightly pointed out, you just had an opportunity to enter a casino gauntlet and become the number one contender and have a title match next week. But you don't want to go through the stress of wrestling some of the best in AEW. You want this back way in so that you only have to face me and get a world title match immediately, sort of thing. Jeff Jarrett said, I can see through what you're trying here. And yeah, no. So yeah, Jeff Jarrett is not going to have it. Seemingly, we are getting into some type of Jeff Jarrett versus MJF promo. This program, I think it's an interesting one because it's like old school versus new school sort of thing. Yeah, I think everyone knows what Jeff Jarrett is capable of. Sorry, MJF is capable of. Everyone definitely knows what Jeff Jarrett is capable of. So yeah, I think it's just it's a clash of the times, and I don't really know right now what the purpose is, sort of thing. But I think it's fun to have like a old timey guy against this kind of new school disrespectful wrestler. So yeah, I think it's very premature. Obviously, this was their first outing out there together. I still have no care for Jeff Jarrett winning the world title. Like I said last week, it'll be a bad decision, not because Jeff Jarrett can't wrestle, but it's a bad decision because it's not a progressive move for the company. Again, we're talking about world champions. People wanted Darby Allin to become world champion, but now Omega's arrived back. You know, I'm sure some of those Darby Allin votes have turned to Kenny Omega votes to become world champion. So yeah, to go to Jeff Jarrett, to put the world title on Jeff Jarrett, I just think is the wrong move. It makes me shudder every time he mentions becoming AEW world champion or winning the world championship. So yeah, hopefully this is just a side thing to kind of take him away from that. I'm sure he will get close to it if they are committed to telling the story, which it looks like they are. But please don't actually pull the trigger and do it. We'll see. Excuse me. So, yeah, I think those are the main bits from Dynamite this past week. Like I said, the show had a good energy about it. I really enjoyed it. I think it was some good stuff. Seeing Omega back, it really does help to restore said feeling of AEW. And there's a whole litany of guys that should really be used in that top main event picture. We saw some of them in a casino gauntlet match, the Hangmans, the Jay Whites and stuff. Swerve Strickland's not on the show right now, but for sure Swerve should be in and around there again really soon. Omega, Ospreay, we saw them on the show. Bobby Lashley, who you would have thought would be up there, looks like he might take a back seat and do the tag team thing for a minute. Cope will probably get a title shot and fall away, maybe. I saw a suggestion today of even Cope beating Moxley and then Christian Cage cashing in on Cope with his clipboard thing to get a little program between those two. Why do so many people have access to this world title? I don't get it. I don't get it, especially from a company that came to the game with a system, a point system, a ranking, if you will, that, you know, this is what you're going to have to do, accumulate wins because wins matter to get a title shot, a world title shot. And now all of a sudden, Cope is in a program with the champion. Powerhouse Hobbs is in a program with the champion. Christian Cage has ultimately a free ticket to become champion. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. And from all of those three guys that are currently around the champion, I'm not really interested in any of them becoming champion. Christian Cage, once upon a time, I would have been, but I think he's cooled off quite a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know with the world title picture. It's very weird that we've went from literally the extreme of having a ranking system where it's one at a time, lads. Get in line, get your wins up, to now there's three people gunning for the world champion. And even just before the three I mentioned, there was three people in Hangman, Orange Cassidy, and Jay White. Crazy. Crazy. Man's got 6 targets on his head in the last 2 weeks or something. It's mad. Gloddy says here in the chat, there's a list of 5 people to be AEW champ, and I want none of them. I was in favor of Christian when he got the contract, but now I'm not interested. Yeah, same. I think the contract has lasted. It's overstayed its welcome. It's overstayed its welcome. Like, they shouldn't even really be doing a Money in the Bank gimmick. But yeah, it's overstayed its welcome. It should have been cashed in, successfully or non-successfully at this point. It shouldn't have lasted for this long. But yeah, guys, that was AEW Dynamite. Like I said, I really enjoyed the show. So that's some good stuff, and I hope they keep this pace up and keep giving us good matches and more story features, which I saw on this show. Really enjoyed it. Don't really have much, outright bad to say about this show. Good TV show, man. Yeah, like I say, on a week where we had Wrestle Dynasty, which was a really good show by AEW, New Japan, CMLL. Everyone involved really done well. Then we had Monday Night Raw, which was just an advert. It was a 3-hour advert about the WWE. And then we kind of returned to real kind of wrestling and pro wrestling and a bit of storytelling sprinkled in there. Yeah, I was happy with this show. So yeah, we're good to hear you guys' comments and thoughts and on stuff. And how did you feel about Omega returning? And who do you want to actually become the world heavyweight champion, the AEW champion post Moxley? Is it Darby? Is it Rated R Cope? Is it Christian Cage? Jay White? Hangman Page? Orange Cassidy? Is it Omega? Is it Osprey? Darby Allin? Let me know who you should be the next champion and lead us forward. And it'd be good to have a chat about that as well. Appreciate everyone for joining the live and everyone that's going to listen to this back. There will be another pod on Sunday. We'll go live on YouTube, Wrestling Weekly. I've got a guest that will be joining me for that as well. We'll talk about all the big stories coming out from the world of wrestling over the past week. So yeah, that'll be a good one for everyone to come and join on, and we'll have a good time before we get into the next week of wrestling. Hit the like button, guys. Hit the subscribe button. And of course, like I say, this is available on your podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast as well. WrestleManiac UK signing out, and I'll see you soon.